The Chinese government has yet to claim anything about the ownership of these wrecks. But the DFA says it has jurisdiction over these areas based on the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea or UNCLOS. Recently, the Philippine Coast Guard has been accused of provoking China after it sent a bureau director and a team to Scarborough Shoal to investigate the oil spill caused by the collision of two Chinese ships. This incident happened last week, but China only reported this to the Philippines today. I'm gonna show you the statement that they released through their embassy in Manila. And you'll notice a lot of things in here, right? They didn't say anything about who owns the wrecks, who owns the oil slick, but they said that China is willing to work with the Philippines to properly handle the issue. They also said that China will continue to maintain good communication with the Philippines on maritime issues in order to safeguard peace and stability in the South China Sea. So what does this mean? China is playing dumb. Why would the Chinese government report this to the Philippine government if it doesn't have any interest in these wrecks? Why would it seem like they're re-acknowledging Philippine jurisdiction over the area when China claims 90% of the South China Sea? Well, let me explain this to you. One of the reasons why China suddenly decided to talk to the Philippines is because they do unwant the Philippine Coast Guard investigating this oil spill, because the investigation will definitely implicate China. China is responsible for this mess, so they don't want the Philippines to find out how much oil was spilled, who's responsible for cleaning it up, and how China will be held liable for damages. According to reports, this is the largest oil spill in the country's history. We're talking about 40,000 barrels of oil spilled into the ocean. That's equivalent to 1.6 million liters of oil. How much is that? Imagine the amount of oil that you use to fill your car from an empty tank. It's roughly 20 full tanks. So multiply that by 1.6 million, and that's how much oil was spilled into the ocean. Now imagine that being spread out over 400,000 square kilometers. The oil slick is more than 30 kilometers long and 8 kilometers wide. That's wider than the Ninoy Aquino International Airport, longer than 18 American football fields. Now add to that for sunken ships, 2 of which are still carrying bunker fuel. This is a disaster waiting to happen. Oil spills are bad enough, but when those oil-covered waters get into the food chain, we're talking about massive ecological damage. Not to mention the impact on the fishing industry, on tourism, on our very survival. China knows all of these, and that's why, instead of confronting the Philippine government about this issue, they let their propaganda network do it for them. Now, aside from being a disaster, this incident is also an embarrassment to the Philippine Coast Guard. Here's why. While the PCG was investigating the oil spill, they found out that one of the ships that collided was owned by a Chinese company, that the ship that caused the oil spill left the scene of the accident, that the 22 crew members on board abandoned ship, and that China never informed the Philippines about this incident, despite the fact that it happened inside Philippine waters. What the heck is going on? Why are we just finding this out now? You know, there were reports that the Philippine Coast Guard confronted China about this incident. And, according to reports, this confrontation went on for 6 hours. The Philippine Coast Guard wanted answers. They got statements from the Chinese ambassador and the Chinese Defense Ministry, but no answers. Instead, they got lectures on how the Philippine Coast Guard should do its job. You know, I can't help but feel that the Philippine government, including the Department of National Defense, is being outplayed by China here. We have laws and international conventions that protect our territory, our sovereignty, even our exclusive economic zone. And China keeps violating them. But every time we try to confront China, we end up backing down. And this Scarborough Shoal incident is a perfect example of that. We are in a standoff right now. China knows that we need their cooperation to resolve this oil spill. We can't clean up the mess without their help. At the same time, they won't cooperate unless we back down and stop our investigation. We're at a stalemate, and it's our environment that will suffer for it, What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I'd like to thank my supporters for making these videos possible. And if you want to be updated on the latest news, follow me on social media. This has been your host. You can now watch our videos on a streaming service.